Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Well, now I am so delighted to be joined by Lily Walford, and we are about to get this conversation started about talking about dating and relationships. So welcome, Lily, to the Glow Up Girl podcast.
Thank you, Kyra. Yeah, I'm super excited to be diving into such a juicy topic. Putting
Yeah.
lockdown and stuff, everyone's like, okay, how on earth do I date, or how on earth can I get my relationship back on track, or whatever it might be during these crazy freaking times.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes to all those things, because I think I know people that fall into all those buckets of, either trying to date, in a relationship, in marriage, and people are just like together all the time. So let's get started. Why don't you first tell the audience about you and what you do?
Yeah, so I am an international relationship and dating coach. I specialize in something called behavioral profiling in body language. So I help people to be able to profile someone within 6 minutes or less. So for those who are single, this is great for compatibility. And also for those who are in relationships, it helps you to become more connected to your partner. So you're able to know what their needs are and also what their fears are to ensure that you're building a relationship successfully.
Oh, nice. So much to dive into. Definitely want to I definitely want to go back to some of that, but let's start maybe at the top here. For anyone out there who is looking, to start dating, what should you know prior to just putting yourself back out there into the world to date?
Yeah, so it's quite funny because this answer to this question has changed so much in just the last 6 months. And the reason is because I've soon learned that identity is so important when it comes to relationships. So before you even get out there and even jump on a dating app or decide to go and meet people, it's really, really important to understand who you are, but not at a whimsical who you are level, but understanding your patterns, who have you been attracted to in the past, and more importantly, what was your childhood like when you were growing up? Because this is the crucial years of when you make and create your own identity. So, for example, if you were the child who were the people pleaser, who loved to be really good for mum and dad and, did all the little odd jobs to keep them happy, or if you were the child who kept on falling over and screaming, until they got the love they needed to be able to be okay, or the child that was highly independent and praised for being independent. And, you've got all these different roles that children can end up playing, and they play out into becoming an adult as well. So the people pleaser be the one staying later at work and working hard, people pleasing in the relationship and feeling like they're not getting enough out of that relationship. You've got all these different dynamics playing out. So it's super important to understand that, because if you don't, you can end up falling into the wrong type of relationship and carry on the patterns. So one of the things I tend to specialize in is people who've gone in narcissistic relationships in particular. Because if you've gone into a narcissistic relationship, I can almost guarantee that you've been in a couple, even if they've been milder ones.
Yeah.
So it's helping people break those patterns, because otherwise it doesn't matter who I bring out to you, whether it's like, okay, I've got the perfect partner for you, here you go. It'll get to a point where you go, this person's perfect. I can't find anything wrong with them. There must be something wrong with me. They're suddenly not going to like me. So I might as well end it now. And people end up in that cycle, or do something subconsciously to end that relationship because it doesn't fit their identity and their patterns that they've been used to before.
Interesting. That is very interesting, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone reference it or talk about it in this manner. But there's a nugget that you said, something I want to go back to that's so important. What you said about, who you are and who you begin to, develop into as a younger person, and those traits, and that you carry those throughout, your life. because I think so many times, we think about like, oh, when I got, in my 20s and my 30s, like, oh, like I became the me that I am today. But really and truly, you still have those things that are like a part of you when you were a teenager, like you said. So if you were somebody who was pleasing when you were, you were the good child and you were doing that when you were, if you look at the patterns, you probably still have been doing that. It might look different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions I love to ask people, because it opens up so much, is whose love did you crave more, your mum or your dad's?
Oh, wow.
And it's so interesting because when we start to dive into it, it's like I usually get things like, my mum's because she was working all the time. When she got home, she was exhausted, so I never got to spend time with her. Or, my dad's because he was an alcoholic and, he never really had any time for me. Or, a parent who used to be highly successful and they love to praise up their child for being, successful, for getting great grades or whatever it might be. And it's like, what's the pattern that we embraced as a child in order to get love and attention from the parent that we needed it from it most? And that's what I bring into a relationship.
Right. And do you think that most people, so say if you were someone who said, oh, yeah, I craved, my mom's love because of, she was working all the time. Do you think people like, go out subconsciously and find that same type of person and relationship? Which, my gosh, and that's going to be so horrible for them.
Yeah, because what it is, it's a form of a trauma pattern. So there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's all about, understanding trauma. And we do a very similar thing in relationships, because what we try to do is we try to recreate the scenario where we really struggled and really had to work hard for love for whatever reason. And we go, okay, so this is the pattern I need to recreate in my relationships. And I need to see if I can fix that, because I didn't fix that as a child. But the funny thing is, if you're going for love from someone who's emotionally unavailable, you're never going to get it. And it's realizing that it's not your responsibility to make someone love you. And that is what a lot of people tend to struggle with. It's like in a relationship, if you want a strong, loving relationship, then I talk about the 4 C's that I created a relationship, and they're compatibility, communication, consideration, and collaboration. And I want to sort of just touch on the collaboration piece a little bit, because this is where like so many people go wrong in relationships. And for collaboration to happen in a healthy way, you need to have 2 individuals who are both accountable for their health, for their wealth, for their well-being, for their emotions, their actions, all these different things. Because only from that place can they collaborate together. If you've got if you've got someone in the relationship who's not taking accountability for their life, so whether it's wealth, whether it's emotions, whether it's absolutely anything, you end up with this weird dynamic. You're no longer equals. You've got a parent and a child.
Right.
Yeah. And what you tend to have then is the parent tries to overtake take responsibility of the whole relationship. And they wonder why the chemistry breaks down. We have the chemistry, the passion, the sexy part of the relationship that feels good suddenly just dissipates. And it can only happen when you've got 2 people who are responsible for themselves, who take responsibility for the relationship equally as partners and as equals, who can have all the juicy good stuff that happens in those relationships.
Yes, I like that. And that's so such helpful advice, because I think you don't think about that. You don't think about there is like a person that becomes like the parent almost, when you should be a partner versus trying to like either change a person or, control it's like wanting to control the relationship almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a form of codependency. And what it is, it's going, okay, well, if I'm the parent in the relationship, I'm in control,
mm-hmm.
and I feel safe because I'm needed.
Mm,
And it's an addictive pattern to be in.
yeah.
But when you're two equals, you're no longer needed, but you're wanted instead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what creates a healthy relationship, not needing each other, but wanting to be together.
Yes, I like that. Thank you for that. So, how do you determine who's the right person for you?
Yeah. So another thing that I've developed is the compatibility matrix. Okay. And this I've had so much fun with, like getting this right. I mean, I've got it to the point where people who use this end up meeting the one within what is it? I think 70% of my clients meet the one within just 3 months. Oh, I've had a client meet the one from this strategy in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's some strategy you got.
Some strategy, yeah. So the full compatibility matrix you can find on the website with it's called the Meet the One Guide. But basically, the metaphor that I kind of created for this is it's almost like you're going to take a long journey, and you want to make sure that you can share it with someone who's also going in the same direction, who wants to be in the same car and wants to listen to the same music. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, what's your life goals? What's the relationship goals, your personal goals? Are they very similar to your partner's? What's the vehicle that you're deciding to drive? Because that's going to give you an idea of the lifestyle that you're going to have with your partner, because that's important. And then it's like, okay, what's the music that you listen to? So what's the rules of life that you play by? What's the interest that you really enjoy to be able to share with someone? Because if you're not enjoying that music together, or you're not choosing to listen to the same music, it's going to be really hard to be able to enjoy that journey together. Yeah. So the matrix, we go through about 10 different areas, but in the guide we go through about 6, because I can give you some, I can't give it all for free. But we talk about things like the interest, for example. And I love to ask people, what's the thing that you could happily talk about for hours and hours and hours without stopping? And what is it about that you really enjoy? Because that's going to give you an idea of the type of partner, again, that you'll want to be with. Because if you can't enjoy similar things, then it's not going to feel fun to open up to someone. And the likelihood is, as well, the interests of that are going to influence the beliefs and the life rules that you play by within your life too. So they're all very intrinsic. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I like that. That's actually a very good tool. And I can, after hearing you describe it and explain it, I can see how someone could meet the right person so quickly, because you're actually focusing on things that matter. And I loved the way you explained it. Like, yes, someone who wants to be in the same car, going in the same direction, listening to the same music, because there is something to that. People in relationships all the time, or they get in a relationship with somebody and they are ready to, this is just an example. They're ready to be married and have children in the next 5 years. But the person that they are dating is like, I was really seeing it more like a 10-year thing. And so there's an immediate that car is going to be a little shaky there.
Yes, exactly. And I think as well, it brings to light why, people's previous relationships haven't worked as well. And I think it's allowing yourself this level of understanding, because it helps that healing and it helps with that closure. Like when you realize that someone can't give you what you needed, it really helps to be able to let go. And the other thing is as well, people are only willing to invest their lives in someone who they believe is going to test that distance with them. So, when you think about, okay, why did so-and-so ghost me, or why did this go wrong, or, whatever, why did that person not like me after the first date? Well, the truth is, that's probably why. They probably looked at you, probably thought it was great, but then they've suddenly realized, well, actually, they're not going to be someone who's going to be able to give me what I want with the lifestyle I want, with the way I play, the rules that I play by, or the direction that I'm going. So, yeah.
And I think too that, this matrix that you have, it's helpful, and it will help people to not be hurt in the long run. So just like you said, if someone's saying, I don't know why this person ghosted me, or why didn't we go on after the first date, but wouldn't you rather go ahead and have that, what seems like heartbreak, then you'd rather have that one quick moment, rip the Band-Aid off, let it go, and move towards the person that is that person that is for you, and the person that has the same goals and wants the same life that you want. Because then people just spend the relationship trying to make that person be who they want them to be, and that person's never going to be that way.
Exactly. And I love this. And I think it kind of falls back into this thing of falling in love with the potential versus the reality.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like it kind of comes back to this thing of like, I remember one of my friends was saying to me that he's not in love with his wife, but he's in love with the thoughts that he has about his wife. And it's like, yeah, we are literally we've fallen in love with the reality that we have created within our minds, from our belief systems and all these beautiful things that we've overlaid on this person.
Right. And then
Yeah. And it's important for us to actually distinguish, okay, what's the reality and what's the truth? Is this person a kind person? Is this person someone that you're happy with now as well, which is a common thing that I tend to find. When we say, okay, here's your ideal partner, or who's the partner that you're currently with, why are you with them? If it's things like, okay, well, they're going to be great in the future. They're going to be really successful. They're going to be really kind of, they're going to make a great parent. If it's all this projection stuff, rather than going, well, actually, they make me feel really good. I feel great around them. They make sure and go that extra mile to make sure I feel loved and cared for. They're really thoughtful. If it's things that are more present, you've got a great relationship. If it's just constantly, 90% of the things that you love about them is about the future, you're in trouble, because you've fallen in love with the delusion or the potential of that person versus actually what's going on right now.
You know what? And I am so glad you brought that up, because I remember some years ago, I had a friend who actually said that. She said, my problem is that I always fall for men who have potential, but they never actually live up to the potential that I think they have. And you saying that, I was like, oh my God, that is so true. People do that. And I'm like, no, what you have to realize is that I'm not saying people cannot evolve, because you can evolve, throughout life, and you can change. But I think like you said, when you go into a relationship, you shouldn't have to fall in love with the potential of someone. You should fall in love with the way someone treats you today. Like, oh, this person, I feel safe. This person makes me feel safe and secure. And that might be your need set and what's important to you. But you don't want to fall in love with them. Well, in the future, I think they're going to really make me feel safe and secure.
Exactly. I think it comes back to this thing, like when we've got this idea of what this person's going to be, or the potential of this person, we then want to nudge them in that direction. And it was quite funny. I was on a podcast about a month ago, and one of the questions they asked me is like, how do I change this about my partner? And it's like, okay, do you want the quick answer? You don't.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, because
the thing is, you can. You definitely can. But at what cost?
Yeah, I mean, that leads to them having some type of resentment, I would think, right? If you spend all this time trying to get someone to fit the mold or be what you want them to be, instead of just letting them be themselves.
Yeah. And you think about when we talked about the collaboration piece of that accountability, if you're nagging someone to go ahead and I don't know, do personal development or become better or make more money or whatever it is, you're suddenly the parent rather than the equal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how everything ties back to something that you sort of set up in the framework earlier in this discussion. And I think you have to let people evolve in their own time. And one of the things is if you are committed to a collaborative partnership with them, then you see that they're trying and that they want to be, we all should always be evolving, want to be better, better versions of ourselves. But like, if you see that it's happening, it just happens, and happens quicker for some and slower for others. And and from a male perspective, I think this is just from my own personal experience. I think with men, it happens a lot slower than with the women. I mean, we're like, so yeah, are you doing that? You're going to do that. I mean, I think if you love someone and like you said, you have good open communication with them, and a person is like, you see them actively trying to get to that next place where you may already be. If you see that happening, let it happen, let it naturally progress. Let them get there. They will get there. But obviously, if you are with somebody who, like you say, your interests are like here, your life that you want to live is like the polar opposite, then you can't be waiting around for that, because that's not your person. There's another person for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think my mini definition of like whether a relationship is healthy or not is, have you grown whilst you've been in that relationship? And if you've both grown in that relationship, chances are it's a pretty healthy one. If one of you stagnated, there's something going wrong. Because if you think about it, the way that we grow as people is so we can actually achieve that long-term goal or wherever we want to go and head. But if we're suddenly feeling like we're being pulled away from that goal, or pulled away from the way that the rules that we play life by, or anything like that, suddenly we're stunted.
And so what advice, what do you say to people? So just say, for example, obviously you have people that may have been dating for a really long time. You may have people who are in more of a committed relationship, like a marriage or a partnership. What do you say to those people where it might be one partner who's growing, another partner who's sort of growing maybe, but they hit that wall and it's stagnant for them, but the other one keeps going?
So it's important to, the simplest thing is to kind of ask yourselves, are you both committed to the growth of this relationship? Because if that's the case, brilliant. It doesn't matter where you are in that relationship, as long as you're both committed to that and you're both happy with that, you'll find your own rhythm and you find your own pace with it. It's the moment where you suddenly lose the commitment or lose that prioritization of the relationship. So what I tend to find is it kind of falls back to this identity piece again. So in particular with men can go through something called mother enmeshment. And mother enmeshment, it can happen in women as well, but it's not as impactful as it is for men, because what happens for men in particular is that they're not allowed to actually create their identity as a child. They have to become what their mother needs them to be versus their own personality. So when this happens, it's almost like there's two identities within that person. There's the role that they're playing that they believe they need to be. So they'll tend to be like the very caring, loving kind of person because they think that's what you need and it's a way of people pleasing. And then there's the background of that person, who they really are, that they haven't fully expressed. So women tend to find that they'll be on a date with someone, it's going great, and then 3 months he's disappeared. Where the bloody else did he go? And so I've seen a few different relationships that have gone through that kind of shift where it's gone, okay, the relationship's growing and, you know, it's going great. And then suddenly there's something happened, whether they've cheated, you know, the partner's cheated, or whether there's been addictions that have popped through, whether it's drink, sex, porn, whatever it might be, or there's overly people-pleasing behaviors, or over I'm trying to think the right word for this, over sexually explorative behaviors. And it's things like that can suddenly creep into the relationship. And often there's this element of, you know, those type of men who've gone through mother enmeshment needing to be able to find their identity, to find out who they really are. So they're able to be full in that relationship. Otherwise we end up in that horrible parent dynamic again, parent-child dynamic. So it's finding out what your relationship needs, and also understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses, because your individual strengths and weaknesses will be the strengths and weaknesses of the relationship. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And I like, this is really good advice, because I think these are just things that people probably haven't had a chance to step back. Because if you're in the relationship, right, a lot of times I'm thinking people probably, you're in it. So it's hard for you to like see outside of it, or, you know, so maybe I hope to all of our listeners and those watching that this is some good, I think this is some really good advice to help you, or maybe just, you know, just some things that maybe you hadn't thought of. So I do want to talk about the narcissist.
It's a big topic.
So let's talk about, you know, things that indicate that someone that you may be interested in, or someone you're with, is a narcissist, or, you know, they're just not, it's not going to be a healthy relationship to embark on.
Yeah. So one thing that's really important to understand around narcissism is that a true narcissist, the empathy part of the brain is underdeveloped. So we're not talking about the person who just takes lots of selfies or anything like that. We're talking about the clinical diagnosis of a true narcissist. So if the empathy part of the brain is underdeveloped, it means that their level of empathy and their ability to connect and their ability to think of your emotions and your well-being is not going to be there. So what we tend to find with narcissists is they almost look at people like resources, like, you know, a pen or a cup, or it's almost like, okay, how do I use this for my own benefit versus how do I connect and love you? And what we tend to find is with, you know, as narcissists grow up and go into the teenage years, they understand how to mimic behavior, because they suddenly realize, oh, I'm a little bit different. I'm superior, or I need different things, or I interact, or I don't feel things the same way as other people do. So they start to actually mimic behavior, so they can play the sadness card, or they can play the happiness card when they're hearing stories being said. There's a really cool way of being able to understand whether if someone's truly empathizing with you, and also if the person's a narcissist, they will never be able to truly empathize with you. They'll never be able to show genuine, true emotion. And the way that you can tell is literally genuine facial expressions will remain on the face, and they will gently fade off. So, you know, when you're smiling, you're talking about a good story, you don't suddenly just go, oh. You know, it stays that, right? It's
right.
But when, with narcissists, if you actually talk about like a really sad story or a really happy story, that's exactly what will happen. It'll suddenly, you know, when you're suddenly telling a sad story and then someone goes, like, wants to interrupt and say, yeah, well, I want to tell you about my news. It's like, hang on. I need the attention. That's kind of that's when you should be going, okay, the red flags need to be warning. Does this happen all the time? Does Does this person actually realize you were telling a sad story? What was going on, and what was the full context of the situation? If it was someone running in and going, I've got emergency outside, it's a little bit different.
Right, of course.
So you can see through and see if there's actual genuine empathy. And the interesting thing is, the way that we actually get taught empathy as well is when we're babies. And it's when the mother or the father is literally doing facial expressions to the babies, and the babies copying. So sticking their tongue out, they're smiling, or that kind of thing. And the babies copy those facial expressions. Now, it's not been proved how narcissists are formed, but my gut feeling from the research that I've created so far is that they've missed out on those early stages of development, because empathy after the age of 7 can't be taught, because the neuroplasticity of the brain is just not there anymore. So other ways that you can tell if someone's a narcissist or not as well is that there's a really good one, actually. So I had 2 just literally jump at the same time. The first one is they don't take no for an answer. So if you ever try to say no to a narcissist, or say, okay, I want to do this, and they want to do something different, they're really going to struggle with you saying no. So it's really important to listen out to that. I mean, for example, I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think it was probably about a year ago now, and said, I really want to work with you, and this and that. I said, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Here's my calendar. Feel free to go ahead and book an appointment. I want to talk to you now. Here's my number. Call me.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And that would give me like, okay, this person's possibly, not, it's the level of narcissism. It's like, okay, I'm superior. I need you to call me now. Your time doesn't matter to me. I'm not busy, so you shouldn't be busy. It's kind of that level of entitlement. So people think that, narcissism is quite hard to spot. It's not. It's just, it's there. It's enough to jolt you. It's enough for you to go, oh, what was that? Or ouch. So it's looking out for those and allowing yourself to listen to your body. And I think that's really important, because we all get that gut feeling when something's off. But the problem is when we're a child, we were taught to ignore that. So it's like, oh, I don't like Dad's work friend Bob, or whatever his name is. And your mum goes, oh no, he's absolutely fine. He got your lovely Christmas present, He's your dad's friend. He's fine. So we get taught to suppress it. So from there, we're like, oh, do you know what? That first date didn't go that well. Do you know what? I'll give it another go.
That's true.
We talk ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
So, but always listen to your gut instinct, because it's usually 95% of the time right.
I agree.
Yeah. I'll give you one more for the narcissism one then. And that would be, look for the flow of the conversation. Actually, no, I'm going to give you another one, because there's another one that's really good. So look at the flow of the conversation. Is it all about them, or are they genuinely asking questions about you? So one thing that I do for my clients, they send me all their, the dating profiles or information or messages from people that they're chatting to. I will look through and I'll say, right, how many times can I see the word I compared to the amount of questions that I see where they're asking questions about the person they're speaking to? Okay, so if I see loads of I's and no questions at the end about asking the other person, okay, what about you, or what's your job about, or asking them anything about the things that they've just said, I'd be like, forget it. This person's too much all about themselves. And then the last one I'll share with you, and this is like potentially life-saving, is look for the emotional range. So we're talking about the empathy again. So one way that one person on my team is really good at looking for people like psychopaths or potential murderers or people like that, they've actually taught me this trick of actually having a look at the emotional range. So if you've got a dating profile of someone who every picture, it looks like they're doing a mugshot of some sort, where their face is just... or it's like, yeah, you going, or it's the slightest smile. huge red flag, because that person's got no emotional expression. And if you've got no emotional expression, you've got no empathy. If you have no empathy, you can't have connection to begin with. So that person you can't build a healthy, loving relationship with.
Awesome. Those are great.
Good.
Spot those flags, my friends out there. Yeah, I like that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so I have two questions. Two last questions. What's the easiest way right now to meet people and to try to find the right one?
Yeah, I would say it all depends on you and the type of person that you're looking for. So, because what I tend to do, I tend to actually look at people and say, okay, what's your compatibility matrix say? Great, cool. You are better off at going online and dating online. Mm-hmm. You're actually better off in going into different groups and meeting people organically that way. But what I tend to say is if you're more suited to meeting people online, keep your profile aligned to who you are. Mm-hmm. You know, don't try to advertise yourself, because it is kind of like advertising. Don't advertise yourself to just everyone and anyone. Mm-hmm. Be selective. If you want someone who's intellectual, have something on your profile that's intellectual. If you want to show that someone that you're really ambitious, put on your profile that you're ambitious, or show something that you know about yourself that you're ambitious. I think I had one lady who's I think she was a priest, and she's like, okay, do I go ahead and put a profile picture of me with my dog collar? And I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. Is that who you are? Great, get it on there. Because you want people to get a flavor of who you are, so you can stop attracting the people that are not aligned to you and start bringing the ones in that are. So it'll stop that element of, hey, how you doing? And having the fatigue of copying and pasting your last answer. We've all been there.
Oh, I love that. I mean, but that's so true. I mean, I think go ahead and just be your true self, and leave your representative somewhere else, because no one wants to date your representative, see your representative. And then, like you said, then you're that person for like a month, right? And then all of a sudden you're not that person, because you can't keep that up, because it's not who you are.
Yes, exactly. And one thing that I've done on the Meet the One guide, I've actually put on ways that you can set up your online dating profile. So a few things that you can look at and ask yourself, so you know how to put the best foot forward, the best version of you out there, so you can attract the right one in.
Awesome. Okay. And lastly, can you tell the audience about your programs that you offer and how they can work with you?
Yeah, so there's two main ones. So there's one where you can work with me one-on-one, and that's over 12 weeks, and we cover 3 main approaches. So number 1 is like the intelligent approach. So we understand more about you, healing childhood patterns, your compatibility, and we create your dating strategy. The second part is the trust flywheel. So we actually go into behavioral profiling. You get to actually learn how to read someone better than a polygraph machine. So you can see the truth and create a relationship from truth, and then how to build that relationship into something really healthy. And then I've got a new program, which is a group program that's over 6 months long, starts in January. And we are actually offering a guarantee that you can meet the one in 6 months or less. Wow. So if you don't, you'll end up carry on working with us until you do. So it's completely guaranteed.
Awesome. And how can everyone connect to you online?
Yeah, so you can check us out on our website. So we've got all our guides and free resources on there as well. So that's lovewithintelligence.com. And we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Pinterest, YouTube, I'm trying to think of any more, Instagram. Mm-hmm. So you can find us all on there as well.
Okay, awesome. Great, great, great. And then I will also drop these links into the show notes so that you all can get to them quickly in case you just, missed it, couldn't get everything written down. All right. So now for our last segment, we're going to move into what I call 5 things. 5 things with Lily today helps people to get to know you just a little bit better, more intimately, I should say. So first question is, how do you start the day?
Oh, great question. I start the day with gratitude. So I usually, before I get out of bed, I will think of between 3 to 5 things that I'm really grateful for, because I find that it really just sets you up and puts you in the right frame of mind in the morning. Mm-hmm. That and a good coffee.
I like it. So I know that you're a podcaster as well. So can you tell us about the Love with Intelligence podcast?
Yeah, so we've had lots of very interesting guests on where we've gone into things like dating scams, so how to spot a dating scammer. We've gone into we've interviewed someone like Mark Bowden, for example, and he's gone a lot into making a great first impression when you're dating. We've also interviewed someone called Scott Rouse around psychopaths. So we've got a real good collection of very interesting topics that are not very often talked about when it comes to dating and relationships.
Awesome. And people, you can find that on any podcast platform, right?
Yeah, so Spotify, Apple, literally everything. Like, I think it's most podcasts, I think even Google as well. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. What's one affirmation that you speak to yourself?
Ooh. Yeah, I am enough. And I think that's like quite an interesting one, because I think a lot of people tend to think about worthiness and enoughness. And I think so many people come from that scarcity mindset. So having the I am enough is just a perfect reminder to say, okay, as long as you're in your truth, you're aligned to yourself, nothing else matters.
Awesome. And next question, what do you do when you're not working?
Gosh. Well, I live very much in the countryside, so I'm a proper country girl. I literally chuck my wellies on and go and take my crazy border collie for walks. She also has just started her agility class, so she's been on her 3rd agility class. She's like super intelligent. I spend time with my partner as well. So we both love psychology. So we end up having lots of different discussions around psychology, helping people. And also we love food. So we tend to go and find some really awesome places to go and eat.
Nice, nice. And the last question is, how do you end the day?
How do I end the day? We usually end the day with watching some comedy. So just something like, if you've had like busy days, lots of like different discussions of people, we will end the day with just something funny. So whether it's something like 40 Towers, Mr. Bean, some cringy comedy show, yeah, we're there.
Awesome. I like that. Well, thank you, Lily. This was a great discussion and such great and helpful information to anyone out there who is, I think, dating, anyone, even people that are already in a relationship. You have given us some excellent nuggets to use. So you can always come back here and see us. If you have new news to share, you have a place here at the Glow Up Girl podcast. So thank you so much for coming by.
Oh, thank you. No, I freaking loved it. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.